Hey, children over 30, how's it going? So today we're going to talk about some rockering stuff. And I'm really excited about this because me and Brock have been trying a whole bunch of different rockers for a while now. I think the last time I made a video about rockering, I was still skating the natural rocker, which a little bit more on that later, but yeah, a couple things before we get started. So at some point in this video, you may ask yourself, what the hell is Drew doing skating these hideous looking skates? Is he going to like barber college, or is it Christmas with the red and white? Like, what's happening? So what happened was I finally kind of got the pieces together of how I wanted to run this rocker for the foreseeable future. And part of that was that I needed rockerable frames. And the only ones I had were these red drift ones, which I knew would look really stupid. So I bought some Seba X2R rockerable frames, which had been discontinued, but I got a good deal on them, so why not check them out? Brock was actually on them for a while too. So I got them, and my one criteria going into it was as long as the hardware is like better than the Flying Eagle, because I mean, it's okay. The rockerable bolts on the outside strip pretty fast on the Flying Eagle ones, and I wasn't really a fan of that. Other than that, they're pretty solid, but I was like, as long as these Seba ones are like, hardware wise in a better spot, like I'm just going to rock them. I don't care what else. So they don't really have any center bracing to speak of. But as I said, that wasn't like the top concern, but it was a concern. The big concern is actually like where the rocker bolts go. So there's the front. So that hole is where the regular screw goes in, and it's actually quite a bit bigger than the screw that goes in there, so it just kind of wiggles on the inside. And then that side has the slot in it for the bolt that you can flip up or down for 2mm rocker or not a 2mm rocker. And the deal with the bolt on this side is the tolerance in here is like really sloppy. So when I was tightening it up, like it was twisting within this hole. Like again, the hole's a little bit bigger than the bolt. So when you're trying to like have this system that either gives you 2mm or not 2mm, and then this bolt is twisting within the hole, like, I mean, that's not a lot. 2mm is not a lot. So it's the only frame I've ever put together and like not believed that it was actually like the rocker that it was supposed to be. So I put them on and kind of looked at them for a couple hours, and then this morning I took them off because I can't do it. So I put the Flying Eagle ones on there, and they look dumb, but I ordered some black ones from Pro Skater's Place, cashed in some reward points for those, and got some extra bolts because they sell those. And I'll probably end up sending these red ones to Brock because I had no idea. He's been on these, and they're just, man, it's a good thing they're discontinued. On a note, though, they don't make rockerable frames anymore. They only make pre-rockered frames, and I wish that they would pursue that further because rockerable frames have a benefit to them, and it's not about you can skate flat or you can skate rockered, because most people that skate rockered, like, once you feel that sensation, you don't want to go back to flat. You just don't. But the deal is, once your wheels start wearing and you start rotating and stuff based on size and where you're at, sometimes you have a wheel that ends up so small that like it would be nice to not rocker it. Like that's actually where you want it. So having rockable frames really to me is just about options, and that's really what I love about it. So the other thing was, I mentioned before, well, the last rockering video I made, I was skating the natural rocker. That's what comes on the Wizards. Those are the dudes that I was kind of emulating at the time, so it seemed logical that I do that. And it was a lot of fun. Eventually, I tried out the full banana rocker, as they call it, 2mm on both sides, pretty standard slalom rocker. And it was great. I loved it pretty much immediately. I will say that for stuff like this, skating rockered, the more rockered your setup is, the more it's going to matter whether or not your stabilizer muscles have, had time to develop and get stronger. If I had gone from flat straight to the rocker that I'm going to show you here in a little bit, like I would not have had a good time. I would have been straight on my ass immediately. When I first started skating banana rocker, like I couldn't skate park with it, like drop in on ramps and, that kind of thing, because it was too wobbly. But I'm telling you, man, like if you put a couple years into it, like you'll build up the muscles necessary to have control when you need it. Every time you go up in rocker, it's harder to control, but your body can compensate for that. But I mean, you really have to put the time into it and stuff. So rocker's kind of a progressive thing. Not everybody can start out with a full banana rocker on an 80mm frame, especially if their foot's pretty big. But it's definitely something that you should work towards. So anyway, so I got on the banana rocker and I got to where I was pretty comfortable with that. And just out of curiosity, because my figure skates, man, are like way rockered. Like there's probably like a good centimeter rocker in the front. And so I asked on the internet somewhere, I was like, hey, has anybody tried like, a 4 millimeter rocker, like 72, 80, 80, 72? Is that cool? And it was kind of funny the responses I got, because people were like, oh man, you might as well like not even have outer wheels if you're going to skate that, which is like, it's ridiculous, dude. Like we're talking about 2 millimeters versus 4 millimeters. So I tried it out and it was like really, really maneuverable and fun. Like I immediately like had a really good time. But the thing I noticed about it, and the thing that I kept battling with it, was that when you go up, well, when you double rocker, essentially, you lose a lot of grip. And for us, like our style of skating, like grip is supreme. You really need grip to, get into edges properly, to do moves. You need edges to like come out of moves properly and generate a lot of power. Like, I mean, having grip is so important to flow. Like I really can't overstate how important it is to have a good grippy setup if you're going to like, flow and keep your power going at the same time. So what I tried to do, the next step was just getting really, really soft wheels. So I went down to, I think something around that brand that I had. It was the MPC Extra Firm Black Magics. And they don't have like a hardness rating on them, but they felt like they were somewhere around 80A, 82A or something like that. And then they don't make a 72 or a 76 even. So I had just some Lebeda, the white ones, they're like 82 or 83A on the outside. And that worked okay, especially when they were brand new, but sort of as I got broken in and that outer layer wore out, I was having the same issues with grip, and more so in different ways because the profiles were different. So the Lebedas are a little bit fatter, more square. So when I would get into those deep edges that I was really after, the corner of one wheel would catch sooner than it was supposed to, and it would just not, it ended up not being like any more secure than what I'd come from, which is really frustrating. But I was just kind of skating that for a while, and eventually, just because of how my wheels wear, the back got worn down to, I think it was around like a 2.5 millimeter rocker, and the 4 was still like nice and big, like that 4 millimeter that I started with. And around that point, I noticed, I mean, I still had problems with the profile, but everything just sort of like evened out and got right where I need it. I mean, it wasn't as grippy as like a banana rocker setup was, which for a lot of people is kind of funny to think about, because it's already kind of slippery. But it was definitely on the way. I remember I had a couple sessions that were just really good, and that's what actually prompted me to look at my wheels, and kind of see where the rocker was at. Which brings us to the rocker that I'm here to talk about today. So this, I have a 72 in the front, rocker down, and then two 80 millimeter wheels, and then this is an 80 millimeter too, and it's rockered up. So we have a 2 millimeter rocker back here and a 4 millimeter rocker up here. And curvature wise, it's the closest you can really get to a figure skating blade right now, which is kind of where a lot of the inspiration for this comes from. So a couple little bits about choices that I made. So the front, I opted for a 72 millimeter wheel because you do have to kind of be careful with this depending on how you skate. And now that I'm used to it, I don't really have this issue. When I first started skating it, I did, where just with the rocker being bigger, it doesn't wear in a way that keeps it where it should be, if that makes sense. So by using a smaller wheel in the front, there's, less surface area. Like it takes less to wear this down than it does an 80 millimeter wheel. And that just helps it keep a little bit healthier of a rocker. In the back, well, I chose these three to be 80s. This one rockered up, obviously, because I wanted a 2 millimeter rocker in the back. But the nice thing, as I was talking about earlier, with rockable frames, is that any of these wheels, any of these three, and on the other skate, can be swapped into other places. So for instance, if I find out I'm wearing a lot on this wheel, I can just chuck it in the back, and then I have some more fresh ones in the middle. Having rockable frames and, a lot of the same type of wheel, again, just gives you options. If you're skating rocker, do you want to maintain somewhat of a consistent rocker? Your wheels are going to wear, they're probably not going to wear evenly. So giving yourself as many options as you can is highly advisable. And just to reiterate, it's not like, a 4 millimeter rocker in the front. It is noticeable It is something that you have to kind of work your way up towards. But I would say, I mean, there is a point where you're ready for it. And when you are ready for it, it's not like you can feel separate rocker positions. I mean, we're literally talking about 4 millimeters before this wheel hits the ground and before you even put your foot in the skate. Like, let's not forget that wheels squish, okay? Like, it's a pretty fluid feeling. And you know, looking at this, I mean, the way that it kind of panned out and everything, it just kind of makes sense. Like, humans tend to do agile things on the toe of their foot. Like, if you watch ballerinas spin around, or anybody really spins around, like, they do it up here. This is a good, secure place to do it. Heel, you know, think about pushing through your heels. Like, if we're talking about power generation and, you know, really like getting in there and getting a deep edge, like, a lot of it comes from your heels. And, you know, having a smaller rocker back there is going to allow you to really dig in and get that grip. Still be maneuverable because it's still rockered, but it's not going to be as rockered as the front. So that's it. Hope you like this video. We'll have more coming out soon. So yeah, see you later.